For more on the energy sector, as well as his thoughts on a potential Trump-Vance presidency, we bring in General Wesley Clark. General Clark is the former Supreme Allied Commander for Europe and NATO. He now has his own firm as well. General, thank you so much for coming on this morning. You obviously have extensive experience in the energy and alternative energy fields in particular, so I want to get your take on the EV space. Given what we have heard so far from the Trump-Vance ticket, if they are to enter office again in November, what do you think would be the single biggest impact on the EV sector in particular?
Oh, I think there's no doubt that we're going to relax permitting. There'll be more opportunities for exploration in the United States and waters offshore of the United States. We expect to see energy hydrocarbon production go up in the United States and more exports of LNG. So there's a lot of LNG terminals out there waiting permitting. Some have been permitted, can't get financed because they don't have long-term contracts overseas. Somehow, though, President Trump's going to have to balance this America first, put up the tariff wall with the desire to export LNG. Countries are going to trade off just like he is. So there's a lot of transactions here that will be looked at very closely.
General Clark, I'm curious what your conversations have been like, just given the uncertainty, given the fact that we've heard from Senator Vance and also former President Donald Trump that they do want to repeal some of that climate policy. How are businesses adjusting now in preparation for that potential outcome?
Well, it's not clear that there's that much adjustment because I think businesses have seen through the politics of this. When you look at the temperature across the United States today, you look at the flooding in Florida and Texas and so forth, businesses understand reality in ways that politicians don't. So yes, businesses will take advantage of tax credits if they're offered. Businesses will take advantage of other government incentives, but businesses also understand reality. They have a longer term perspective in many cases than the political advocates of particular positions. So globally, businesses are moving to recognize the reality of climate change. Whether this country does it and recognizes it politically or not, our businesses are. So they are making appropriate adjustments for the fact that we're going to deal with higher temperatures, more difficult insurance policies, more flood events, more severe storms, et cetera. You can't deny it. So they'll go and sway back and forth with the politics of the current administration or the next administration, but they're looking at realities.
General, you say you can't deny it, but we do hear denial from certain individuals within the Trump campaign. What concerns you about that if Trump does enter office again come November?
I think, the country needs to really look at hard science. And even companies like Exxon 50 years ago recognized the contribution of carbon emissions to climate change. They just didn't want to admit it for business purposes. So when you're looking at this sector, we've got to, you can say you're a climate denier, you can ask for contributions from hydrocarbon companies. I'm in that business. I know how it works. But the reality is that this is the time we should maximize America's hydrocarbon strength and use those resources gained to transition to a more carbon neutral policy as soon as possible.
And General, before we let you go, we only have about a minute here, but I'm curious what you're hearing from NATO members, just in terms of what a Trump presidency will mean for the U.S.'s stability, how you see that impacting foreign policy.
Well, they're shaking in their boots, to be honest. They don't understand exactly everything that Mr. Trump's going to do. They know he's a little unpredictable, but he's been very, very clear. He wants to cut U.S. support in NATO. He's made these provocative statements about inviting Mr. Putin in to do what he wants with members who don't contribute 2% of their GDP. It completely undercuts the concept of deterrence. And he's talking about trying to solve Ukraine, I guess, by forcing the Ukrainians to concede territory to Mr. Putin. So, yes, Europe's highly concerned.
General, we can't thank you enough for your time this morning. We really appreciate you coming on. That was General Wesley Clark, Wesley K. Clark and Associates, Chairman and CEO, as well as several other accolades here. Thank you.